Cover cam, sorry. The chapter or unit 1 review, the first problem, what you have to do is you have to distribute your negative. So you're going to bring down your 4x plus 6, and then you're going to distribute that negative to each one of them. So you have negative 4, negative is a positive 3x plus 2. Once you have distributed that negative, then you can do what? What is our next step? Combined like terms. So we're going to combine our x's. So I have 4x and 3x gives me 7x. And then we have 6 minus 4 is 2 plus 2 gives me 4. So if you do not have this done, I expect you to be writing it all down. So when you leave this room, you will have this completely done. Thank you. Number 2. Number 2, we bring down that 3. Since we're distributing a 1, if I multiply it through, it's going to be the same. So I'm just going to go plus 4 minus x. What do I have to distribute now? Negative 5. So I'm going to take that negative 5 and multiply it to each one of these. So I have negative 5x, negative and a negative make a positive, and 5 times 2 is 10. Oh, yep, do you got them both? Did you find this one? Is it up? Did you get it? Okay.
Do we have a test tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Are we just going to study all day today?
I'm going through all of this, your review sheet that you should have done. So I'm going through all of it, and then you're going to study afterwards. Yep, you're going to get the exact same one, but you're going to be able to try to do it without looking at anything. Because remember, tomorrow there's no notes or anything, so it's just being able to do it. So yep, that's what we're doing today. It's just we're not learning anything new. So now we're going to combine like terms. So I have a negative x and a negative 5x gives me a negative 6x. 3 plus 4 is 7 plus 10 gives me 17. When you see the word factor, what does factor mean? What are we looking for? The GCF, or things in common. So we're looking for what's in common. So they all have an A. What about the number? They have 16, 8, and 16. What do they all have in common? Did you guys say 8 or A? Oh, 8. Sorry, I thought you said A. So, and they also have an A, because that has an A squared, and that has an A. So 8A is what we're going to pull out. Then you're asking yourself, what times this will give me 16AB? So 8 times what gives me 16? 2. A times what will give me AB? B. Then we go to our next one. So we have minus. We already have our 8. And we need 2 A's, so that means we need an A and a C. You pulled out a 4? Yeah, you want to pull out the highest thing, because those numbers still can be divisible then by 4. So you want to pull out the highest number that all of them go into. And then the last one is our 16. So 8 times what gives me 16 is 2. A, D, so that means I need a D. $15, 9, and 12. What's the biggest number that we can pull out? 3 is right. Then we have X here, an X and an X, so that means we can pull out an X. How many Y's can we pull out? We have 1 here, 2 there, and 3 there. 1 is right. Again, 3 times what gives me 15? 5. And then we already have our xy, so we don't have to write anything, because 5 times 3xy is 15xy. Three times what gives me my 9? 3. And then I have my x, but I need one more y. Take a second. If you did not do this, I know some of you are doing it with me. See if you know what this last term should be. 3xy times what will give me 12xy cubed. Don't tell me what it is, just write it down or think it. So you're asking yourself, 3 times what gives me 12, and then what do I need left there? So hopefully all of you have 4y squared. Questions on the first
I
4?
actually had that one.
No questions? Alright. Write an equation and solve. So it says the area of Ben's farm is 65% the area of Katie's farm. So what are our two unknowns? What are our two things? Just reading that, what are our two unknowns? What are our variables? Ben's farm and Katie's farm. And that is going to be the area, remember, that we're doing, so the area of them. So then you go back and you read it. It says the area of Ben's farm, so that's our B, is equals 65%, so 0.65 the area of, what does of mean? Multiply of Katie's farm, so we have a K. That is our equation that you're going to have to write for the equation line, because it asks you for an equation and then it asks you for the solution. Alright, you also have to identify your variables. So then we want to read the next one. It says if Katie's farm is 177 acres. So where do I put in? Do I put it in for B or K? 177. K. So I got 0.65 times my 177. Throwing that into your calculator, you get 115.05. So that is acres squared, which is Ben's farm. Alright, remember that this square goes just to what it's attached to. So this one says that it's -7 times 7. There's two 7s.
14.
So that would be your -49. Because it's multiplication. Multiply. 7 squared. But when you have parentheses, that means you have -7 times -7. So negative and negative make a positive, and that would be your 49.
I was watching the -14.
Now, on 7 through 11, if you know the shortcut, when you multiply, you add exponents. When you divide, you subtract them. You do not have to do these steps. But just in case you don't know that, we're going to do all of those steps. So the first thing that we have here is you're going to tell me if it stays or moves to the bottom. A squared stays. B to the -3 goes down, because remember, anytime it has negative, it goes to the opposite, and that becomes a positive then. So B to the 3. A to the -5 goes down. A to the 5.
Then B to the -4 goes to the top. Then
B, very good. So it goes B to the -4, goes to the top. So it's B to the 4. And then I'm going to wait to see if anybody has any questions. Any questions? Alright, so now we just look to see what we have left to reduce. We have A's on the top and bottom. We have 5 here, 2 there. So how many do I have left? If they're on the top and bottom, remember they cancel each other out. So you're saying that you have 3 of them, and we'll have 3 on the bottom. And then we have 4 on the top, 3 on the bottom, so that leaves me with 1 on the top. Which one has the most? So see how this has A to the 5th? That means that you have 5 A's on the bottom. and then you had two A's on the top. So they cancel each other out. That's literally what we're doing. And so that's why we are left with 3 on the bottom. So you always look for the highest exponent. That's where it would stay. Okay? After they were positive. Yep. But good question. Any other? All right. So let's do the same thing with 8. So the first thing we have is negative 18 and divided by negative 3 is 6. All right. So the x, is it staying or going to the bottom? Is x to the 5th is staying. Y to the negative 4. Going down to y to the 4th. X squared stays. On the bottom, we have our y to the 4th, and that's going to stay. Now, oops, let me move this over. Now the same thing, one thing you can always think of is if you wrote 5 x's out and then you wrote 2 more x's, how many x's would you have? You'd have 7. So that is why you're going to have 6x to the 7th. And on the bottom, the same thing, you would have 4 and then 4 more, so you'd have y to the 8th. And when you're multiplying them, you're adding the exponents. So that's, and the number is going to go up here. That's how you can kind of think about it. Questions? All right, number 9. Y to the negative 3. First thing, draw that line. Y to the negative 3. That negative tells me to put it to the bottom. Y to the 3. Then you have y to the 7th. Y to the 7th is going to stay on the top. So I have 7 on the top, 3 on the bottom. How many do I have left? 4, and that will stay on the top because that's the highest exponent. When you have, and I'll put it right here, when you have them on the top of each other, you subtract them because you're having y 7 times. And then on the bottom you have y 3 times. So you are going like this. And so that's why you have y to the 4th. And so it's really that you would subtract them. But the other way, if you had y to the 7th and y 3, when they're next to each other, you would have 7 of them here. And then you have 3 more still on the top. So they can't cancel each other out. See that? So that's why you would, when they're on the top, or on the same plane, if top or bottom, you would add. If they're opposite each other, that's when you subtract. And the biggest thing is, this is the way, like sometimes it's easier to think about that you're actually reducing, because you have one on the top and one on the bottom, you're reducing. But when they're on the same plane, or on the same thing, you want to go through and say, okay, I have 7 of them, and then I'm adding 3 more, so now I have 10 of them. So that's why over here, because these are on the same level, we added them. And these were on the same level, so we added them. All right, 10. We have -2, 3, and 3.
Excuse this interruption. One last call for any students who do not have an ID to go and get their ID taken in the auditorium stage. Any teachers who need an ID also. Thank you.
All right, so then we have x to the 5th. And you can actually, at this point, we have x to the 5th and we have x here. So how many x's do I have? 6 of them. So I'm going to go x to the 6th. And then here, this y to the -2, what's it going to happen? What's going to happen to that y to the -2? Go to the bottom. And it's going to be a +2. I will tell you, this 18 came from -2, 3 and 3. She was talking when we were doing that, so just so you know, that's where the 18 comes from. When you have x cubed and you square it, what do you have to do to the exponents? What do you do to those 3 and 2? Multiply them is right. So we have 5 squared, which is 25. X to the third squared, so you have 3 times 2 is 6. Y squared squared gives me y to the fourth. Then we have here x squared to the fourth gives me x to the eighth. And then the cube in 4 is 12. Because we're multiplying these. So anytime it's raised, if it has x squared squared, you multiply those. Collecting like terms, we have 25. We have 6 x's and 8 x's, so multiplying together, so we have 14 of them. And then y to the 16th. Yep, because remember when you have that, you multiply the, you're multiplying the exponents because x cubed squared. X cubed squared says that you have x cubed and x cubed. So what happens is it's saying that you're going to have 2 of them, so that would be your x to the 6 when you would add them. If you wrote that out, if you want to rewrite them out, you can. But the trick is to know. Oh, sorry. When I combined them? Yeah. No, when I combined them, I added them.
Oh, I thought you said multiplied.
Oh, I said multiplied. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I thought, sorry. But when you multiply them, I meant to say when you multiply your variables, you add your exponents. Okay. So 8 and 6 gives me 14. Sorry about that. All right. Clearing fractions. How do I get rid of my fractions? I'm going to multiply everything by 6. So literally in your calculator, do you guys remember if you have 6 to the 2/3, how do you do that if you wanted to combine them? You would go 6 times 3 and then you would add the 2 and then you could divide it out. So you could do it that way, or you can reduce. How many times does 3 go into 6? Twice. And then 2 times 2 is 4. So that's how I'm getting my thing. So that's what I do. 6 and 6 gives me, 6 goes into 6 once, so I have 1x. 6 goes into that, 3, and 3 times 5 is 15. So all I'm doing is multiplying each one by 6. And you can also in your calculator go 2 divided by 3 times 6, and that'll give you the same answer. And it'll give you 4. And then you simply, what do we got to do next? Subtract 4. All right, 13. 13. We want to get our y's by themselves, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to actually go subtract 0.4y. So I have y is plus 5.02 is equal to 0. And then I'll subtract my 5.02. So y is equal to negative 5.02. Yep, and then you probably divided by, you probably put your 1.4 on the other side first, and then you divide it by a negative. Yeah. Yep, same thing. Yep, it's the same answer. Yep. All right, 14. 14, the first thing you want to do is distribute. So we have distribution. So 3 to the 7 and 3 to the negative 2. So I have 21 minus my 6x. Negative times my 4 is a negative 4. Negative times x gives me a negative x. Bringing down my 11 because we're not doing anything to it. What do I got to distribute? Negative 9. So I'm going to distribute the negative 9. Negative 9x. Negative negative is a positive 9. At this point, what I would do is I would combine like terms. So I'm going to combine like terms. So my x's, I'm going to have negative 6x and a negative x, gives me a negative 7x. 21 minus 4, bless you, is 17. And I have a negative 9x, 11 and 9 is 20. Bringing them to the same side, we're going to do is go, you're adding 9x to both sides. So I have a 2x plus 17 is equal to 20. Subtract the 17 from both sides. And then divide by 2. So that equals 1.5. What do you have to do if something is factored like this and it's set equal to 0? What do we have to do to each thing? You have to set them all to 0. So it's going to be x equals 0, x minus 7 is equal to 0, and 2x minus 4 is equal to 0. Then you solve them out. Yep. So the first one solved out for you. That's your first answer. The second one, what do we got to do? Add 7. And then the last one is you would add your 4 and then divide by the 2. So you have 3 answers for this problem. Questions on 15? I'm hoping for a lot of hundreds. That's what I'm hoping for tomorrow. On 16, the first, what do we have to set 3x minus 6 equal to?
0.
And then 5x plus 15 is equal to? 0. Solve it out. So I add 6. So I have 3x is equal to 6. Divide by 3. Here, I have to subtract 15, so I get 5x is equal to a negative 15. Divide by 3. Thank you, 5. Thank you. And the answer is 3. Yep. But I meant that's how I got my 3. And x is equal to a negative 3. Yep, sure was. And that's why I give partial credit, because I know I do little mistakes like that too. Huh? Alright. Backside. Backside, we only have 4 more problems, and they're the story problems, and then you'll have your time. Alright, so we have here, suppose you start with $90 into your savings account, and you deposit $15 a week. So that means X is going to be the weeks, or how many weeks we have. What does this, I don't want 480, but what does this represent? What is that? That's money in the bank. So we are going to set that to Y, and that's Y is money in the bank. Right? So that's our equation. It's our first step. This is going to be on the quiz, so make sure you write that you know the X is weeks. I want you to write those out, or the test tomorrow. So now it says, how long will it take you to save 480? So always do it without looking at the last one first. Yes?
On the test tomorrow, if we set the equation equal to 480 instead of y, will we still get credit?
For the equation?
Yeah.
I really would like you to try to do it to y, but because tomorrow's the first test, if you forget, and I probably will give that to you. But I really want you to start practicing, because the thing is, the reason why this is an equation, and if you put the 480 into it, why it's not, is because what happens if I change and say, okay, now what happens if it's 500? Or what happens if I want to save 700? So you want to be able to, that's your variable. So your two variables, and on the test tomorrow, I'm going to have x equals y equals, so it reminds you.
Okay.
So that's the biggest thing, is because the biggest thing is we want to, because this is an easier section, and we're going to keep adding to it. So we really want to make sure we know how to make those equations from the story problems. So then we want to put in 480. So we have 90 plus 15x is equal to the 480. Subtract my 90. So I have 15x is equal to 390, and divide by 15. All right, so we have here 18. Money is borrowed at 12% simple interest. At 1 year, 896 pays off the loan. How much was borrowed original? So the first thing that you want to do is you want x to be the original amount. And what is the other thing that could change? What's the other variable? What would y be? The loan amount. Yep, so the loan that we paid off, so the amount paid off. Now, the reason why your original amount, because you always have to pay your original amount, but you also have to pay that interest. That's why you have that added on. So, if I borrow money and I have 12% interest, I would go 0.12 times my money. But this is only my interest. I have to pay my loan too. So I'm going to put plus x, and that's going to equal how much money I paid off. So 1 plus 0.12 is 1.12, x equals y. Do you know that if you walk into the store and say you're buying something for $100, you can actually just multiply it by 1.06, and that's going to be how much it's going to ring up on at the cash register, because this 1 represents the original amount, this 0.12 represents the percentage that you're adding to it. So if you walk into any place and it's 14%, you can go 1.14x, and that's always going to be how it is, just so that you know. $896, it was what we're talking about, so 1.12 x is equal to 896, and you all know we divide by 1. Oh yeah, yep. Divide by 1.12, and when you put that in your calculator, you're going to get $800. So $800 is the original loan. All right, length and width. It says the length of a rectangle is 5 times the width. So that means that our width is going to be x. What is the length? It says it's 5x. It says the length is 5 times, so it's 5x. How do you find the perimeter? What do you have to do to find the perimeter of something? Add up all the sides, right? So we're going to add up these sides. So on your equation, I don't care if you go P equals 5x plus x plus 5x plus x, or you can add them up first. So you have 5 and 5 is 10, 11, 12. You could say that you have 12 x's. However you want, whatever equation I will accept. How much is the perimeter around on this rectangle? 36. So we have 36 is equal to 12x. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And then divide by my 12. So x is going to be 3. So my width is 3 inches. And my length is 15 because it's 5 times that. Alright, and my last one. The student gets 93 plus 78 plus 82 on the first 3 tests. What does she have to score on her 4th test? So x is equal to the 4th test. How do you, and we are looking for the average, so y is what you're looking for, so we're looking for the average. So how do I find the average? I have to add these up and divide by what? 4. And that is going to equal our average. And that is our 85, right? So we can put our y for our equation, so y equals, and that's 253, add it all up, plus x over 4. So it equals 85. So 85 equals 253 plus x over 4. How do I get rid of that 4? Multiply both sides by 4. I have 340 is equal to 253 plus x. Subtract the 253, x is 87. So they have to get an 87% on test 4. All right, again, what I'm going to be giving you one of these blank, and they're going to be the same number. So you've seen it, you've done it, you've seen it. Now you should be able to do the whole thing without looking at anything. Did you have a question or stretching? No. Oh, so make sure that you try the problems and then go back and look at how to do them.